If you're putting audio content out there, you definitely know that that nagging question, right? How do we actually prove this thing is working? How do you define a win, especially now when it feels like there's just so much noise? Well, we've got the sources, not just telling you which metrics, but laying out a real strategic playbook for using those numbers. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, we've really boiled it down, taken a whole heap of data and focused on the 10 absolute must-haves for measuring podcast success. And you're right, it's way more than just looking good. We're after that detailed data. Does your content strategy actually connect? How's the overall performance looking? And crucially, what's the real return on your marketing?
Right, and that's the mission for you listening today. Pull out the best 10 metrics. We're kind of skipping the basic dictionary definitions. I want to get straight to the strategic so what behind these numbers. So you leave this deep dive, like properly informed and ready to actually adjust your strategy. We'll start where it makes sense, I think, with commitment and volume.
Okay, metric number 1. This is probably the strongest sign of, consistent future performance. Subscribers.
Okay, need to clarify this, though, for our audience who gets this stuff. What a platform subscriber is versus maybe what they do. We're not talking email list here, right? That's important too, but different. This is a listener who actually hit follow or subscribe on Apple, Spotify, whatever. Strategically, what's the key difference?
The difference is really about guaranteed feed presence and intent. When someone subscribes on the platform, they're signaling they kind of want to hear every episode, or at least they want it to show up automatically. This gives creators a much more reliable projection. Got 10,000 subscribers? Okay, you can pretty confidently predict a minimum download number for your next episode.
And that confidence, that's absolute gold for monetization, isn't it?
Okay.
The sources hammer this home subscribers are people who've already acted. They're basically pre-qualified leads for anyone buying ads.
Precisely. Ad agencies definitely look for that level of commitment. Because these listeners already raised their hand, said yes to subscribing, they're just statistically much more likely to take the next step. Fill out a survey, share the show, or, importantly, react well to an ad. That's why having a strong subscriber base helps you lock in those better ad deals.
Okay, so shifting from that commitment idea to just raw volume. Metric 2, total downloads. This is the number everyone throws around, but there are some big caveats. First, big one. Make sure your stats are IAB Tech Lab certified. Always.
Yeah, that IAB certification, it's not just some fancy sticker. It's genuinely the standard that the big ad agencies insist on. It's like the gatekeeper for serious ad money because it confirms you're not just counting, bots or accidental replays. The IAB definition is pretty strict. It counts one download from a unique listener, and it filters that hard using IP address and user agents.
And here's the bit that always surprises people, the thing that kind of undermines the whole metric, if you're not careful, strategically speaking, a download. It only needs enough data for someone to play 1 minute of audio, 60 seconds.
It's a really low bar. It means someone could hit play, hate your intro music, close the app after 75 seconds, and boom, that still counts as a full download in the stats. Plus, if that same person listens again later that day, within 24 hours, still just one unique download. It's designed to be strict about uniqueness, but yeah, surprisingly loose on actual consumption.
Okay, so if total downloads can be a bit of a vanity number, then metric 3 kind of brings us back down to earth. Downloads per episode, or DPE. You could have, say, 500,000 total downloads, right?
Yeah.
But if like 90% of those came from one huge interview you did 2 years back, well, that number is super misleading for your current strategy.
Exactly. DPE corrects for that potential skew in the volume. It's the metric you actually use day to day for planning future content, for analyzing what's working now. Let's say you're trying different formats, right? Maybe every third episode's a panel, the rest are deep dives like this. DPE tells you almost instantly which format is hitting harder with your current audience.
And it also gives you really specific feedback on marketing spend, too. Like, if you dropped $500 boosting a certain episode on social media, you compare that cost directly against the DPE lift for that specific episode instead of just getting lost in the big overall total download number. That's how you actually start proving ROI on promotion.
Now, what's fascinating here is how podcasts give your content this longevity. Most digital stuff just doesn't have that kind of shelf life, which leads us straight into metric number 4, downloads over time.
Yeah. This one's critical for understanding the real trajectory of your show. Let's say we drop an episode today, it gets 5,000 downloads first week. Okay, great. But then, 6 months later, someone new finds the show, they binge the back catalog, including that episode. If we don't track downloads over time, we just assume all those 5,000 listens happened right at the start during that launch buzz.
And making that assumption, it costs you strategic insight big time. Tracking those downloads 6 months, even 2 years after release, shows you the actual ongoing appeal, the evergreen value of your content. If an old episode is still pulling in thousands of listeners way down the line, you got to figure out why. Was it a really foundational topic, a guest who's just timeless? That data tells you what kind of content you should maybe double down on moving forward. It shifts your focus from just the launch splash to like sustained relevance.
Okay, but now we absolutely have to tackle the elephant in the room, that 1-minute download thing we mentioned. If we really want to prove we're making quality content, we have to get past that super low bar. Which brings us nicely to metric 5, average listening time and completion rate.
These retention metrics, they're really the ultimate judges of content quality, aren't they? Average listening time helps you spot structural problems. If you keep seeing a sharp drop-off around the 15-minute mark, episode after episode, was your show maybe too long? Is that where you always put your ad break? Or maybe you're just consistently losing people when you switch from topic A to topic B. It flags those points.
I think completion rate is maybe even more telling. Maybe a bit brutal, but strategically super useful. It shows the actual percentage of listeners who stuck it out start to finish. It's like the total opposite of the 1-minute download metric. If your completion rate is high, let's say 85%, wow, you've got exceptional engagement. It proves your content flows well, you held their attention.
Yeah, and if that completion rate tanks for specific episodes, that's an immediate red flag. Could be pacing, could be the topic itself, maybe just engagement issues within that episode. It might tell you, hey, maybe repackage that content to shorter parts, or maybe just use better timestamping in the show notes so people can skip bits they don't care about. Retention proves value, not just basic consumption.
Okay, moving on. Metric 6 shifts focus to the geography of listening, you could say, audience by listening platform. This tells you exactly where your podcast is really landing. Apple.Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher. Where is it thriving?
And this is a really direct operational metric. It directly impacts your time and budget. If you see like Spotify is driving 80% of your downloads, but you're spending 90% of your effort optimizing your Apple Podcasts presence, well, you've got a resource allocation issue there, don't you? It signals exactly where you might need to check for maybe platform-specific tweaks or just change how you publish your links.
Which is exactly why the sources keep recommending using a smart link for promotions, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned friction earlier. That's the enemy in podcast marketing. Making someone manually search for your show in their favorite app, that causes drop-off instantly. A smart link lets them click once, boom, choose their app. Easy.
Metric 7 then moves into reviews, ratings, and rankings. This stuff creates that essential social proof. While the actual content of a review can be useful feedback, honestly, just the volume of high ratings builds instant trust, especially for potential new listeners just browsing search results.
Okay, but let's push back a little here. The data, it overwhelmingly comes from Apple Podcasts, right?
Yep.
So if our audience is, say, 70% Spotify users, how much strategic weight do we really put on ratings from a platform that only represents 30% of our listeners? Are we kind of optimizing for a minority?
That's a really fair point. And the key is probably to treat reviews more like general brand health indicators rather than perfectly representative sample data. Apple Podcasts still functions as the main discovery engine for many casual listeners, right? So rankings there are still, unfortunately, kind of a necessary evil just for basic visibility. There are tools that track reviews and your average ranking over time. They give you a snapshot of how you're moving in the market. If you suddenly drop out of the top 100 in your category on Apple, well, you know you've got a potential visibility problem, even if your Spotify numbers seem fine.
Got it. Okay, last one for this section. Metric 8, peak times. This is a fascinating behavioral one. It maps the actual hours of the day people are hitting download on your content.
Yeah, this insight gives you a little window into their daily lives, you know? Are episodes getting grabbed instantly at 3 a.m. just because that's when your feed updates? Or are people mostly listening during really scheduled times, like the morning commute, maybe the lunch break, or 7 p.m. while they're making dinner?
And knowing those peak listening times, that lets you get really strategic with timing your own stuff. Promotional posts, social media chats, even targeted ads maybe. If you know most of your audience tunes in between 7 and 8 a.m., well, that's probably when you should drop your most urgent announcements or post on social media, right? To maximize that immediate reach. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Now we're shifting focus completely outside the audio feed itself. We're talking about the whole internet reach, starting with metric number 9, website visits.
Right. Your podcast shouldn't just live in audio apps. It needs to be an open door to the rest of the internet, and your website really reflects that potential. Website traffic is critical because, for one thing, it validates your SEO efforts, your search engine optimization. It means when someone searches Google for a topic you cover, they're actually finding your episode notes, your transcripts, your landing pages. That's a win.
And if that number's high, it probably means you've got good quality show notes, strong metadata, all that back-end stuff. Plus, that traffic isn't just good for SEO, it's another monetization path, isn't it? One that complements the audio ads.
Absolutely. You can take that website traffic data straight to potential ad buyers. You can say, look, not only will 10,000 people hear your ad this week, but another 5,000 unique visitors are going to see a visual banner ad right there on the episode page while they're reading the transcript. That lets you create these integrated campaigns that really boost your overall ad value.
Okay, rounding out our 10 essential metrics, we land on number 10, social media followers. This feels similar in a way to the subscriber metric we started with. It's another clear sign that people are taking an action to stay connected, but this time outside the listening app.
Yeah, podcasting, fundamentally, it's about building a community, right? Not just broadcasting content into the void. A healthy follower count on social media confirms that engagement goes beyond just listening. It shows listeners are turning into maybe active participants, part of a network around your brand.
And the difference between a platform subscriber and a social follower is pretty key, I think. A subscriber might be more passive, they get the episode, they listen when they listen. A social follower, though, they're potentially more active. They might share clips, jump into comments, participate in Q&As. They can become your best marketing tool, really, providing that unpaid, authentic reach.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, I think the main takeaway here is that all this complexity, all these numbers, they shouldn't lead to paralysis. Podcast metrics are really only as helpful as they are usable. And that usability, it really hinges on putting them all together. Centralization, you need to track these 10 key things, ideally in one place, like a dashboard, so you can actually make comparisons effectively. You need to be able to see the relationship, for example, between a sudden surge in subscribers, that's metric 1, and maybe a simultaneous dip in your completion rate, metric 5. Seeing those together helps you diagnose what's really going on strategically.
Right. You absolutely cannot operate these metrics in their own little silos. They have to talk to each other to give you the full picture of your content's health. So what does this all mean? We spent a bit of time talking about how a download technically only requires 1 minute of audio data, just 60 seconds. Now really think about that definition and knowing that every single minute after that first one is hard-won retention. How does that 1 minute threshold change how you approach your intros, your teaser segments, your overall content structure, especially when you put it right next to that completion rate metric? Basically, are the first 60 seconds of your show good enough to earn the next 60 minutes from your listener? Something to think about as you plan your next deep dive.